Good day everyone, this is Mohammed Nasim Firdaus Shajib, and today we are here with a new topic, and that is reading comprehension, reasoning and background knowledge. We will be looking at the important factors and the role of reasoning and background knowledge while we are going to read a written text. So what should we look at and how will we look at those things will be explained and elaborated in this particular slide. So this slide narration is categorized in is separated in three different sections. First section will be with the theories. You will be know what do we refer by reasoning and by background knowledge. Then we'll try to put this idea in written text whenever we'll be try to read some text, and then we will be having some practices as well. So these three sections uh, uh, will form this particular slide narration, and the source is the New Headway 3rd edition intermediate students book. You have this book. I believe that you have this book. So let's start with our contents. What are the contents for today's section, today's narration? So here are the contents. We will go straight with the objectives, and then we will be introducing today's session, and then we will be talking about verbal reasoning, connecting background knowledge and developing schema. And of course we'll try to apply our knowledge which we will be learning through this slide narration, and then we will end this slide with some practices which is referred as conclusion. So let's start with our objectives. So what are the things we are going to learn from this particular class? As we will learn verbal reasoning, we will try to learn verbal reasoning, but I believe that after watching this slide narration you will know what is verbal reasoning, and you will be able to apply that in a reading text. You will also be able to connect background knowledge as well, the knowledge. So what are the background knowledge? So definitely I will be talking about those as well, and of course you will learn and to develop your schema, your knowledge with the process of all other things while you are reading a written text. So we'll be looking in the both sections. We will simultaneously we will know about verbal reasoning, cognitive background knowledge and developing schema, and the replication in a written text. Okay, so let's start with our introduction. In intro, we have these three major sections which we talked earlier. First one is verbal reasoning, and verbal reasoning refers the ability to comprehend and developing logic through concepts and problems expressed in written text. So we try to focus on some of the points, that is the ability to comprehend and developing logic. So whenever we will be reading a text, we will try to develop our ability to understand the text, and we will also try to develop the logic through concepts and problems expressed in written text. I believe that you are well aware about this fact that in a written text there are lack of expressions. There are less expressions in compared to our oral text, in compared to our spoken text. So that is why we need some other things, and those things are our ability to understand and our developing our ability to develop logic behind the sentence, in between sentences, in between passages. We have to develop the concepts. So what are we going to going to read, and the problems as well, which are arise, and which have arose in a written text. And then background knowledge. In general, background knowledge is that the knowledge you have before encountering the subject. So we are referring through background knowledge. I'm referring to content knowledge, I am referring to academic knowledge, I am also referring to vocabulary. So that means the necessary vocabulary which will be needing for comprehending content information. For example, you want to know, you are reading how to make a cup of tea. So in order to understand that, in order to understand the text which is all about how to make a cup of tea, you need some background knowledge. You need some background knowledge of maybe a kitchen, maybe tea, maybe kettle. So those things you need to understand before you read the text. So that is what we are referring as background knowledge. And also we are here, we also need to understand the schema. Though schema is referred in general as a background knowledge, but schema is used to put the new information into a meaningful context. So the knowledge you had, you will use all of those knowledge as into a meaningful context, and this will help you to remember and understand it. I in this season, of course, but without this season as well, I try to give an example of ocean or sea beach. I know this is a high time. Some of you have already visited sea beaches, maybe Cox's Bazar, maybe Saint Martin. So that's why this particular example is very relevant. I should tell you. The thing is that what if you have some idea about sea beaches, about ocean, about water, then whatever I will be talking about you, it will be relating to you. But if you have never seen an ocean or never see a sea beach, even not in a frame, in a frame means in a TV or monitor or computer or your smartphone or mobile phone, anywhere you have not ever seen it, such things, and then it will be very difficult for you to understand what I am talking about whenever I am talking about a sea beach, maybe surfing or maybe swimming over a wave. So these particular vocabs will be remaining unknown to you, which is a very problematic one while you are reading a written text on those particular topics. So that's why you need those information, and whenever you will have this information and you will use those information, you will need this information, you will put this information into a meaningful context, and those application will help you to remember and understand the written text which you are reading at that moment. But definitely we'll be having a detailed knowledge about these things. So let's see that. So let's start with the verbal reasoning. Verbal reasoning refers, we are talking about the ability, and what are the ability we'll be developing through verbal reasoning. We'll be able to extract meaning and information from the text. So some of you might raise a question. So what's new? What's new in this particular slide? We have always talked about extracting meaning and information from the text through skimming, through scanning. So what is verbal reasoning in there? Then I should refer you the second one, that is ability to think constructively and apply logic rather than simple fluency or vocabulary recognition. So in here, in verbal reasoning, we not only talk about just extracting meaning and information from the text through skim and scan, rather than, and in here we are suggesting or recommending you to construct and to apply, to think constructively and to apply logic rather than simple fluency or vocabulary recognition. Maybe you know some of the vocabularies, maybe you have the fluency, but still that might create a problem to understand if you do not have verbal reasoning, if you do not apply logic, if you do not think constructively. And in verbal reasoning test, so the test which try to evaluate, which try to judge your ability for verbal reasoning, that test is actually evaluates how well a reader, maybe the audience, can extract and work with meaning, information, and implication. So these three things: meaning, information, and implication. So first you will have this meaning. That doesn't mean, of course, that doesn't mean only Bengali meaning, the translation. That means that what do you mean by that, and then that meaning will forward you to the information. What are the information you are getting? And after the information, there will be some implications. So what are you going to do with this information? For example, if I say I have drawn a picture with a chalk or with a pen, you can understand and the relationship among the words, because you know that the pen has the ability to draw, to write something down. But if I tell you this kind, like I am trying to draw, or I have drawn a picture of, or okay, let's focus on a simple sentence. I have drawn a flag with an earphone. Will that sound fine? Through an earphone, I have drawn a flag, or maybe a cow. No, that doesn't implicate so, because those will be seeming a little bit awkward, because that can be happening because of what? Because of that logic we are talking about, because of that the constructive thinking we are talking about, because of the implication we are talking about. So verbal reasoning is all about understanding and reasoning and through concepts and frame in words. So through frames, through concepts, we are generating a meaning. We are trying to understand what is there in written text. We apply our knowledge, we apply our logic, we apply our concept in order to understand the total meaning of this particular text. And in background knowledge, we have already talked about the primary knowledge about the thing. So that could be a topic, that could be a subject, that could be an object as well. So the thing is that if you know better about the topic which you are going to read, then it will be very helpful for you. The more you know about a topic, the easier it is to read a text, understand it, and retain the information. So by reading, we do not just mean to scream the words. We do not mean to just read loudly the words, but rather we are referring it as understanding it. We are trying to mean that retaining the information you are having in this particular sense. And it helps students develop better reading comprehension skills regardless of the reading level. So if we have background knowledge, then the students, that means the learners, they will be able to develop better reading comprehension skill, and whatever level they are. For example, I believe that in Bangladeshi context, maybe in South Asian context, many of you might not know about Halloween festival. So if I talk about something on Halloween festival, it will be very difficult to read for you. Okay, let me give you some real life example. In my real life classroom, when I advise my students to read a daily, especially read newspapers from the Guardian.com. So some of them have tried to read, and in some days one of my students came to me and told me that, sir, whenever I read the sports section, it seems very easy for me. I able to read fluently, and I understand most of it. But whenever I try to read the art or the political section or the national or international section, it seems a little bit hazy for me. It seems a little bit challenging for me, especially the vocabs. So most of them I do not know, and that actually not helping me to understand the meaning, and I need much time to acknowledge and understand. I have to go forth and back. So I gave him the information. I recommended him that that is very natural. You have less problems in reading sports articles because most of the time you read sports articles and you are familiar with those vocabs. Maybe you like cricket matches and you watch cricket, and that's why the affiliated or related words seems very known to you, very popular to you. That is why it did not face much challenges. But for other sections, it becomes so difficult for you, as many of the vocabs you don't know. You have less knowledge, less background knowledge on this particular topic. So that happens. So that's why you also need background knowledge. So that always I believe that you have this question. You should have these questions. How will we develop our background knowledge? But this is not the time. Here we are just disclosing about these ideas. Let's go with the next one. Schema theory. So what is schema theory? We talked about schema. Now what is schema theory? So schema theory is the process by which readers combine their own background knowledge with the information in a written text to comprehend the text. So through schema theory, we are actually joining the verbal reasoning and background knowledge all together in order to generate our understanding from a written text. So it is the process by which readers combine their own background knowledge with the information in a written text to comprehend the text. So you have two sides. Number one is your background knowledge, what you know before reading this text, and the information which the text is providing to you. So those, combining those two, you are comprehending the text. So that is what is schema theory. And in schema theory, it is used to put new information into a meaningful context. That what we said earlier, to help the readers remember and understand it. Yes, it helps you to remember and understand. We use to put a new information into a meaningful context, and it helps the readers to remember and understand it. So if you have proper knowledge on a particular topic, it will be very helpful for you to understand the written text in there. So what is schema? So let's say I have these things. I think I believe that it will not be difficult for you to understand. And this is a table figure, and I took it from here, Psycholinguistics, a research book for students by John Field, page 39. You will little bit there by John Field. This is the name of the book. So in there, the author tried to show the schema concept. So for example, if you talk about a table, so what are the affiliated words with the table? What are the background knowledge you might have about this table? Maybe the chair cloth, that means legs, rectangular surface, eating, writing, operating, the functions, artifact, dining, coffee, snooker, folding, rectory, jet-legged, pine, oak, mahogany. I mean the wood which was needed to make this one, and where can you find these things? A dining room, kitchen, restaurant, sitting room, boardroom, and of course you can consider it as a furniture. So these are the ideas which come to you in your mind. So these things we are talking about in a schema. For example, in class, you what could be the affiliated words you could remember? Maybe the teachers, maybe the students, maybe the whiteboard, maybe the books, maybe assignments, and maybe tests. So maybe presentation. So what about the things? Maybe question answers. So there are lots of the things in there. So whenever you see this particular word class and you have generated these kinds of information in there, so we are saying that you have the background knowledge about this particular word in there. So whenever you have these kinds of background knowledge about a text, it will be very helpful for you to understand it. So we are wrapping up those theories we are going to learn. I know many of you do not want to know the theories, but in sometimes whenever we are going to the real world, we need some theories in there. So that's why it was needed. So in one sense, you can say that I have developed a background knowledge as in order to carry on about this written text. So till now, what we know is that we need comfort and fluency while interacting with written language. Interacting with written language means whenever we are trying to understand a written text, what is written, whenever we are trying to learn it, we are trying to understand it, that means we are interacting. And we need using, understanding, and engaging with advanced vocabulary. Yes, it is important to use, understand, and engage. Do not just go for the Bengali meaning of an English word. Try to use it, try to understand it, try to engage with it. For example, you are very familiar with this word ground, G-R-O-U-N-D, ground, but you know that based on different contexts, this particular word can give you different meaning, very different meaning. For example, ground could be the field. For example, ground could be the base floor, like as I live in the ground floor. Or for example, it could be a matter as well. In which ground are you talking about? So it's all about using, understanding, and engaging advanced vocabulary. So do not just go for the Bengali vocabulary, but go for its synonyms, go for its antonyms, go for its application in different contexts. This will help you. And thinking and making inferences during reading. So what do we mean by inferences? Inferences mean whenever we read something, we try to go for a conclusion. We try to go for our last understanding about this text. For example, I have read about history of pizza. I read about when did pizza started to produce, who produced it, and from where it came, and what are the toppings it could be. And after that, I came to a conclusion is that yes, this whole text is all about the history of pizza. So that is what I am calling it as inferences. So thinking and making inferences during reading. So whenever you will be reading, you will think and you will make a conclusion about the text, and that will help you to understand the whole text. And of course, you need to understand the connections between different pieces of a written text. So in a genuine written text, all the text are the pieces of a whole thing. For example, in a pen, you might have three sections: the cap, the bottom, and the body. In the body, you will find the ink is there. So all through these three things, it makes you a pen. itself. So you need to understand the all pieces of written text in order to understand the connection. So that's what I am suggesting to you. Whenever you will be reading, try to read from the first word to the last word in order to understand completely about this text, and use your background knowledge, use inferences, use logic, use your verbal reasoning in order to understand that. So now in reading comprehension, so what are the purposes of our reading comprehension? So what will we do by developing our reading comprehension? That could be, I have gathered two different purposes. Number one is whenever you need to answer some questions, and of course you need it academically. For example, if you go for IELTS test, or maybe PT, or maybe GMAT, GRE, or maybe Cambridge test, you will find different sorts of questions, and these sorts of questions you have also found in your SSC and interlevel as well. And those are question answer, that means short answers. There will be some questions and need to answer very specifically. There is MCQ, that means multiple choice questions. So there are two categories of multiple choice courses. One could be single answer, wherever you need to just tick one particular answer, and that could be multiple choice questions where there will be two multiple answers in there, or more than one answers in there. So you need to choose more than one. That could be multiple choice courses, multiple answers. And then table matchings, you are very familiar with it, table matching. And then matching headlines are there. So there will be some bunches of text or passages, and the headlines will be missing, and there will be some headlines in there. So you need to match those headlines with those text. And there will be reordering as well. Many of you find it very difficult, but definitely you will be able to understand if you read closely, if you use all those things, those I have showed you. And then text completion through fill in the blanks. We have I believe that most of you have done these things, fill in the blanks. There are lots of FIBs fill in the blanks in there, so you have done that. And of course the summary, whenever the question, the test asks you to summarize the whole text, that we are called summary. And of course one thing is missing in there. I am very sorry, I forgot that one. That is true false. And there is another section which is added in true false, and that is not given. You will find these kinds of questions in IELTS test as well as in IELTS reading. So that is another categorical questions which will be there. So that's what I am talking about. So those could be the purposes. So you will be reading a text in order to answer these types of questions. That could be one of your purposes. And another purpose which we are looking for in this particular course program, and that is academic. You know, if you learn these things, how will this benefit? How will this make you benefited? First one is you will be try to grasping main ideas. How will you grasp the main ideas? You will learn that, and then you will be able to analyze thoughts, and you will be able to prepare responses and connect themes and creating background knowledge. And how will it help to you? Maybe if you apply this knowledge in your literary text, then, and if you follow this guideline, if you follow this information, if you follow these tips and tricks and theories, it will help you to understand the text which you are reading. And you know that in academically all of the text those you are reading in different courses, so all come to one particular test, that is your written test. And if you read well, then you will be able to answer those questions properly in your test. You will be able to answer properly if you have developed these kinds of skills for reading comprehension. Okay, now here we are in the practice session now, and in this practice I have chosen this one, that is unit 11 and page 86 to 93. The name of the unit is Tell Me About It. That is the name of the unit, but the text which we are going to evaluate or practice, the name it is How Well Do You Know Your World? So that is a question, and still it is a topic. So in under one question or one topic, you will have found several sections or several topics. Number one, do animals have feelings? Number two, what are the Earth's oldest living things? Number three, what man-made things on Earth can be seen from space? And number four, what is the most terrible natural disaster to have hit the Earth? Number five, why is not there a row 13 on airplanes? And number six, why do women live longer than men? And number seven, was Uncle Sam a real person? So there are 7 different texts in there. They're very small. We'll try to apply our verbal reasoning, background knowledge, and schema in this text, and try to find out whether we can understand better or not. So let's start with the first one, that is, do animals have feelings? So I believe and hope that you can read properly. Maybe somewhat it is blurry, but still I believe that I can read here. So definitely you will be able to read. First one is, do animals have feelings? So let's read the text first. All pet owners would say yes. Molly the dog and Whiskers the cat can feel angry, depressed, neglected, happy, even jealous and guilty. Many scientists, however, are skeptical about giving animals the full range of emotions that humans can feel. Part of the problem is that it is impossible to prove that even a human being is feeling happy or sad. In fact, it is only because we can observe body language and facial expression that we can deduce it. And of course, humans can express the emotion with language. However, most researchers do agree that many creatures experience fear. Some scientists define this as a primary emotion. Okay, so now the theories we are trying to. First one is that whenever we see the topic animals and feelings, so let's start with you schema and background knowledge. What are the things you are background knowledge? And of course you will try to take help from the text and pictures as well. So you can see one dog is there. So based on those things, what could be, do animals have feelings, whether they cry, whether they laugh, or whether they have these kinds of feelings or emotions those we have as human beings. So this is all about that. So do animals have feelings? And specifically talk about animals' expression, animals' way of expressing their feelings, their thoughts, whether they are happy or sad. So then whenever, if you have generated these kinds of information and through this text, then it will be very easy for you to understand it. So this is a very common thing you have encountered with different animals, and you know many of them. So it will be better for you to understand whenever you have this kinds of background knowledge about this written text. So then you can understand what are we talking about. We are talking about animal feelings. And if you have answered this one, that is, do animals have feelings? Yes or no? Yes or no? Do animals have feelings? Yes or no? So then you can tell that yes, I have understood that text. But let me answer this one for you, is that, and if I want to answer this question, do animals have feelings, then I should tell you yes. Okay, but they have limited, because in this sentence it says that, and of course most researchers do agree that many creatures experience fear. Some scientists define this as a primary emotion. So yes, they have emotion. So here feelings, if emotion is used as a replaced word of feelings. So you can say that yes, they have emotion, maybe the primary one, maybe the only one, maybe very limited, but yes, they have the feelings, but not in the sense that human being can and express. So they are not compared to human beings. Human beings showing expression is very high. Okay, then in the next text we have this question: what are the earth's oldest living things? What are the earth's oldest living things? So you can see, you can now, it is the time for you to develop background knowledge. As in this sense, I mean, in this scene, in this particular moment, I would like to request you to give it a pause and then try to generate some ideas, some background knowledge about this text without reading here. Just give it a pause and try to write these things. Okay, just take your pen and paper, or maybe on your computer screen you can write, maybe on your tab or mobile. Just try to write the ideas which you have about these things. You can also take the help from this picture as well. Okay, give it a pause now. Okay, I hope you have done that. Now let's read about the text. Read the text. The White Mountains of California are home to our oldest living things, trees. The oldest tree in the world, uh, Methuselah, has roots that go back over 4,600 years. This makes it older even than the Great Pyramids. The 26-foot bristlecone pine tree is the oldest of many that have outlived civilization after civilization. So the background knowledge we have is, you can see the tree. So maybe the world's earth's oldest living thing is a tree, and then we can see the White Mountains of California. So if you know about mountains, if you know about the California is one of the cities of USA, home to our oldest living things. Whenever we refer our, we are referring in this world, and trees are the oldest thing. The oldest tree in the world is Methuselah, has roots that go back over 4,600 years. So it is living for last 4,600 years. So that is quite old. This makes it older even than a pyramids. So this particular tree was born before pyramid. The 26-foot bristlecone pine tree is the oldest of many that have outlived civilization after civilization. So it is very old. So now you have this answer. So if you have guessed it correct, it will be very easy to understand for you. Maybe there will be some words which you don't know, but still you could understand the total picture in there. Now your turn is to give it another pause and go back to the dictionaries and try to learn from that. And here we have another one, that is, what man-made things on earth can be seen from space. So let's first make underline this man-made things and then seen from space. So those lines could be underlined. So you can do that and then give it a pause and try to identify. Of course you can take the help from the picture as well, but I will suggest you without doing that. When humans first flew in space, they were amazed to discover that the only man-made object visible from orbit was the Great Wall of China. So look at it here. Now we need to use a logic and concept. There is a single inverted comma in there. So here the author is actually referring to a particular information from someone. It is not his or her voice. Okay, let's see. Although this is a nice idea, it is not true. The Great Wall is mostly grey stone and in a grey landscape, and in fact is very difficult to see even from a plane flying at a mere 50 kilometers above. What can be seen when orbiting the Earth from about 200 kilometers up are the lights of the world's largest metropolitan areas. So what man-made things on Earth can be seen from space? What is your answer? Give it a pause now. Yes, give it a pause. So write down the answer and then come back and try to have this answer from me. Okay, now you have done that. So the what man-made things on earth can be seen from space, and that is the lights of the world's large metropolitan areas. Those are the man-made things which can be seen from space. So that will be the answer. Yes, if you have done that, then you are absolutely correct. If you have you do not if you did not do that, then I will try to read very closely again. Reading practice, and we are having this another one, that is number 4. What is the most terrible natural disaster to have hit the earth? So that's our keyword, natural disaster. Then we have most terrible, and the earth is our object. So what are the things? So the question is, what is the most terrible natural disaster? So we are looking for the most terrible natural disasters. So we have earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and hurricanes are responsible for the deaths of thousands of people every year. So earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and hurricanes are the natural disasters we are talking about. One of the most violent earthquakes ever recorded was in Ecuador in 1906. It was the equivalent of 100 H bombs. H bombs is referred to hydrogen bombs. It is the second gen bombs after nuclear bombs, atomic bombs. But it was nothing compared to a volcanic eruption in Tambora, Indonesia in 1815. This was the equivalent of 10,000 H bombs. But even these are nothing compared to many tropical hurricanes. They regularly have the energy of an amazing 100,000 H bombs. However, there is one natural disaster that beats all of these by a very long way: a meteor that hit the earth 65 million years ago and caused an explosion the equivalent of 10 million H bombs. So the most terrible natural disaster is the heat of a meteor. Meteor means as the element which is thrown from the space, maybe from the fraction, or maybe from the explosion of a galaxy or of a star. So from that one of the portions, one of the elements from those galaxy or star come to spear the um, global atmosphere and hit our earth, and that happened 65 million years ago, and that was explosion equivalent of 10 million H bombs. So that is what it is saying. So I hope you have understand it. And we have come to number 6, the number 5. Definitely we will go back there, so don't worry about that. Why do women live longer than men? Women generally live about 6 years longer than men. So that is a basic basic in statistics, and that gives you the understanding. Yes, the question is correct. You know correctly that women live longer than the men. These statistics will give you the justification of this particular statement that women live longer. So now the question is, why do women live longer? Evidence suggests that boys are the weaker sex at birth, which means that more die in infancy. So that means men are dying from the birth as well. Men also have a greater risk of heart disease than women, and they have heart attacks earlier in life. Okay, men smoke and drink more than women, and their behavior is generally more aggressive, particularly when driving. So they are more likely to die in accidents. So men die more in accidents. Also, men are more often in dangerous occupations such as construction work. Historically, women died in childbirth and men in wars. So nuns and philosophers. So I don't know whether the author is try to become a little bit funny, but though it is true that and historically most of the women died during the childbirth, and most of the men died in wars. That's why nuns who do not need to give birth of child, and the philosophers who do not join wars, that means those particular professions live longer. So now childbearing is less risky. Yes, we have now very advanced technology and doctors and information there, and there are fewer wars. Yes, we do not have much war that those we had before. So now we know why they are, because of the heart attacks, because of the weaker sex, because of the wars, because of the accidents, driving, aggressive driving. So these are the reasons women live longer than men. So I would like to request you to list the reasons, and let me know in the forums or in the comments, and definitely in the forums for my students. Okay, now we have gone back to number 5. Why is not there a row 13 on aeroplanes? So why do not we have row 13 on aeroplanes? If you have traveled through airplane, if you have used plane as a transport to move from one place to another place, as you might see that in many countries the number 13 is considered to be very unlucky. So I think whenever you say 13, many of you might have understood this one. Many of you different opinions about being unlucky about this number 30, whether you are believing this charming things and bad luck things or not. But let's see what this passage is telling us. In France, there is never a house with the number 13. In the United States, modern high-rise buildings level the floor that follows 12 as 14. Where did this fear of a number come from? So why people become very feared from this number? The idea goes back at least to Norse mythology in ancient times. I believe many of you will know or still know or have this background knowledge about Norse mythology. So that's the thing we need to develop. You need to develop Norse mythology ancient times, which will help you to understand. There was a banquet with 12 gods. Loki, the spirit of evil, decided to join without being invited. So who is Loki? You need this background knowledge in order to understand that. Loki is one of the mythical characters. So you need to understand that. If you do not understand that, you will find very difficult to understand this text as well. In the fight that followed, Balder, the favorite of the gods, was killed. So you can understand with the background knowledge, one thing for sure is that whenever he came in this party, in this banquet, as number 13, that created a scene, and that created a mischief for others. In Christianity, this theme was repeated at the Last Supper. Jesus Christ and his apostles number 13 people at the table. So that means the followers of Christ, and which were in the table. And the Last Supper we talk about, you need to have this kind of background knowledge as well. If you are a follower of Christian religion, you might have known this, but if you are not, then you might face difficulty to understand it. So Last Supper is one of the terms which is needed you to understand. Jesus Christ is there, apostles is there, so then you will be understanding that, because after 8 hours of this Last Supper, Jesus Christ was crucified, and crucified till death. So that's why you need to understand this one. So we are at the very end, and at the last section of this whole bunch of text. What do you know about this world? Was Uncle Sam a real person? I think I will skip it because I believe that you do not know much about Uncle Sam, because it is a character based on US, and as a citizen of Bangladesh or South Asian region, you might not know this particular picture. You might not familiar with this one. So before going through this text, I would like to request you to search in Google about Uncle Sam and come back with your ideas to read these things, and I believe it will be giving you lots of the things, because you will find Arlington, Massachusetts and lots of the things, striped trousers, what you mean, though you will find this one. Even if you search with these names, you will find the find a whole picture of Uncle Sam, which will give you some ideas about Uncle Sam. So the question is, was Uncle Sam a real person? So I think you need to give it a pause. So pause. So now I think you have come back, and now I should tell you the answer. The answer is yes. Uncle Sam is a real person. And how Uncle Sam got popular, you need to read from the other sources to have this knowledge. Okay, now the practice session. So how will you practice? So I said it earlier, or you can have this one. You need to read the newspaper, especially whichever language you are trying to learn. If you are trying to learn British language, you need to read British newspaper. If you are trying to learn US language, then you need to that means American version of language, English, then you need to read US. If you want to learn Aussie English, then you need to read the Aussie variant, that means Australian variant of English. So you need those newspapers, those variant of newspapers. It will help you very much. And of course, reading text in headway, there are lots of the text, lots of the reading passages text in there, so you can have this one. I have given some examples in there, so definitely you will find other text in there, and you can have this practice with it. So question for you, what else would you like to know about the world? So this is your question. What else would you like to know? You have learned 7 things about this world. What are the other things you would like to know? So what I want is, ask a question in the forum, just the question. You will write only a question in the forum, and you will, what will ask in this question? You will ask the other things that you would like to know about this world. And how will you produce that question? How will you make this question? You will follow the question pattern and used in this particular slide narration. So definitely just go through the passages, just go back with the passages and text, and try to understand what are the things in there, and then you will learn, okay, how to make a question. You will learn how to make a question, and then you need to produce this question. Okay, now this is one of the important part. It is in your quiz. So definitely I will upload that, but I will show you how to do this in here. The thing is that you need to answer only A, B, C. It is MCQ, multiple choice question, and single answer. So there will be only one answer. So first one is question 1 2 3 4 5, and second one is vocabulary 1 2 3 4 5. So the way you will write answer is that question 1, and then write whether A or B or C, only one, A or B or C, whichever is correct after reading this one, and then Q2, Q3, like this one. So till Q5, Q4, Q5, and then for vocabulary you will start with V1, V2, V3, V4, V5. So please follow this pattern. If you do not follow this pattern, you might not get proper marks in there. So please follow this pattern whenever you are answering this one. Okay, so that is your I should a task. That is your task in this particular slide narration. Okay, so if you have any question, I believe you should have any question. You should have some questions. Yes, you should have some questions. Please do ask. Please do ask them in the forum. And of course, I will be appreciating if you also know this answer and you share your opinions and thoughts about these theories and practices and things in there. So thank you very much for being present here, for being so attentive, for being coming back and forth here to understand all of these things. I'm really grateful to all of you to come here and join with these things. So thank you once again, and thank you very much for the effort.